anything about cleaning cars, but I thought it might be interesting for those of you that are newer to American Flyer or antique trains, what it takes to, in my opinion, get a car back on the rails in a fashion worthy of its heritage. So if we take this car for example, this T&P 631 link coupler gondola is an extremely common car. You can find these for sale all day long, a few bucks. They would be what you would consider pretty much worthless or almost worthless in the world of Flyer. However, they still have value, and in my opinion, they're worth cleaning up, worth taking good care of, especially if they have some promise. This one has very little playwear on it. It's got a little bit of a scuff here, but it's in excellent shape. Based on the brass weights, this car would have been from 1947 to 1948, in that vicinity. So what I've been doing is I've been going through some cars that I picked up a while back and cleaning them up, and when they're done, I think they look pretty nice. Now again, they started out being in pretty good shape. They just needed a lot of cleaning. So without actually doing it for you, because it's probably going to be pretty tedious to watch on camera, because it sure is tedious to do in person, here are some of the steps. So cars that I can, like the boxcar I just showed you in this gondola, I'll first start by putting them in a warm soapy water with Dawn dish soap, and I'll take a soft brush, say that fast 10 times, and I'll gently go over everything. Just dip the whole thing in there, and what this does is this gets rid of a lot of the dust, a little bit of oil, that kind of thing. So then after it dries, the next step for me at least is to take a Dremel tool with a wire brush and go along the side trucks. Now this one has just a tiny bit of rust I see, but what this does is this just, again, it cleans them up, it takes a little bit of the rust off. If there's light rust, polishes them up. You have to be careful, because obviously you've got a high-speed tool there, and it can get thrown into the plastic and damage the plastic. So you have to be careful. So then the next step I do usually is go around and just kind of highlight the trucks on all sides. You know, there's 4 sides. Do that. Doesn't take very long, but it's a step. The next thing I do is, generally these link couplers and sometimes the wheels will have a plasticizer in them that over time it turns white. So here's one I have yet to do. You can see how that link coupler is completely white. You've got white on the back side of the wheels. Oftentimes it's on the front, especially up in here. It can be on the treads themselves. And there's a couple ways you can deal with that. You can use an oil on a Q-tip, and you can kind of rub it and it'll come off. What I've tended to do more lately is actually use a heating gun. And again, you have to be very careful, because obviously this is plastic, so heat and plastic will cause problems if you're not careful. So a very small amount of heat actually causes that white plasticizer or release agent or whatever it is to kind of dissolve. You see it kind of go from white to clear, and it just sits on everything. So the next thing I do is I wet down a Q-tip with some CRC 226, and I go around and I start wiping down everything. And in the process of that, oftentimes there's buildup on the wheels. That's what this is. This was in a circle, and this entire caked on circlet of carbon and dust from a few years ago, maybe 50 years ago of running, came right off in a circle, and I broke it and pulled it away. Now, a little bit of a side note. Again, if you use something like 226, CRC 226 on your rails when you're running trains, this kind of thing will never happen again. This is a result of there being a lot of static electricity in your rails, and because you're running plastic on plastic wheels, that generates more static, and it just causes this attraction and you get buildup. And it can get very thick. As a kid, I used to have permanent dents in my fingers from trying to clean that stuff off. So that's the next step. After I go around and I clean everything, wipe everything down, then I want to make sure that the link couplers are loose. They need to be floppy like this, and typically they're not. They're like this one here that I have yet to do anything with. You can see it moves, but with some effort. They shouldn't move like this. They should just flop. When they flop, they work really good. When they're like that, they work terrible and make you frustrated. So there's different ways you can do this. You can actually take the link coupler off, kind of drill out and clean out the hole, and do it that way. And that's a really good way to do it. What I've tended to do is I'll take a heating iron and I'll actually heat this pin up. Again, you have to be careful. Keep the heat, except for the tip, away from your frame of your car. And heat this up. I'll put it in this position, and all of a sudden it'll go bloop like that. That tells me that it's starting to melt just a tiny bit. And then with the heat still on, I'll work this around a little bit. And I also put a drop of oil before I do anything. I work it around, and then, you know, the heat's on for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, not a long time. Just enough to get the coupler to drop, and then I work it like this. And then generally, it's pretty good. Once in a while, when I go back and check them a little later, they will have seized up again. The other thing that I do is I take this tiny pick, thank you for my dentist, and I'll come in here around the pin and around back behind this pin on each side, and there's usually a buildup of gunk. Again, it's plasticizers coming out of the plastic, and I'll go after that and I'll clean it up, and generally those things together end up giving you a good result. And these are the steps that I go through to clean one car. All right, so I get the cleaning done, I get the couplers done. The next thing I do is I take a dime and I check for gauge of the wheels, because another thing that happens with old wheel sets is, for one reason or another, they get shoved out of gauge. So I check that. If that's good, the last thing I do is I make sure the wheels are on one side of the truck, and I put one tiny drop of oil all the way around. At that point, this car is ready to roll. Thought you might find that interesting.